This is Amy with Flower Moxie. We're just gonna build a simple, soft centerpiece using the same thing I used to build the spiral bouquet earlier. I just took it apart. I think a lot of people get nervous with centerpieces, and it's not overly complicated, and I just have a method of the way I go about it. What I'll be using today is a compote with some floral foam taped with waterproof floral tape. What I prefer is chicken wire. So if you're a florist, you want to try to move away from floral foam as soon as possible. It is a good place when you're a beginner because the stem just holds. So the way I start most of my centerpieces is I just want to get some kind of structure, and I need to know what my boundaries are and how big I'm going to make it. And so a lot of times I will come around with greenery to set those parameters. And that's what I'm doing with this baby eucalyptus and this Israeli ruscus. And I always start on the outside and work my way in. It feels intimidating when you're a new florist, and especially when you DIY, and it's like, where do I start? And I remember that feeling when I was a new florist. I would just like plop my favorite flower in the middle and then just try to build around it, which was weird. And so the shape I'm going for, and the reason why I put these two weirdos like this, is I kind of want to, have a little bit of like a soft flow like I did with that bouquet, if you've seen that video. And so once I get some of those things in place, then I'll put a little bit of greenery throughout the center of it. And designing on a Lazy Susan is really nice just because you can make sure and get all the sides. When I don't have a Lazy Susan, I definitely have one side that I end up working on the most. It's the side I like the most, and the back side I'm like, hope no one sits in front of that, but that's why that Lazy Susan's really helpful. So I've kind of set some margins up. And greening it out is something that you can do several days in advance. So Wednesday night, if you're getting married on Saturday and you get your flowers Wednesday, green out your centerpieces. You really have to, if you're using foam especially, the stuff dries out and you have to have water in it. Greenery still needs water. So make sure that you keep filling that vessel up. Okay, so I've got a little bit of a structure here, and I start with larger blooms and I work my way down into the more delicate things. And going with that shape that I wanted, this is a very blown out mother of pearl. It's the end of the day. So I'm gonna put this guy up here. We're gonna kind of nestle it down. I've got like 3 of these. So what I don't want to do is this. That's what I want to avoid. And I don't want them all at the same height, right together. So when it's bare like this, I kind of create what I call the skeleton. Like I'm trying to disperse things and have them at different heights. So I kind of like this, where I'm going with this. Now let's come in with the next largest thing, which is this Eskimo rose. And so it's very obviously similar in shape. And so I'm going to nestle this guy down a little bit more and see about having that white rose protruding out a little bit more and turn slightly in a different direction. Okay, I love the shape. I like where I'm working. what I'm working with. I'm gonna put a little bit of greenery in the center. It's too much. Okay, let's come in with these really beautiful spray roses. Some florists like to, grab one thing and then grab a different item. A lot of the florists that I've worked with and the way I prefer is I like to kind of usually concentrate with one material at a time. I know that I'm kind of doing my recipe right, and it just makes it a little bit easier. So I'm cutting that guy down because I don't want him sprigging out so much, and we'll come back in with his buddy. See, I like how it gave me that variation. And so even though I do the majority of the greening at the beginning, that does not mean that I stop greening. I just don't, sometimes I can get it like so heavy-handed with the greenery at the first that I load it too far down. And I want to make sure that when I'm doing my placement, I want things spilling out. I don't want it to be like a wall of florals. And so if you've noticed, I've added most of like my volume, or I hate to call a rose a filler flower, but I would definitely call it a volume flower. And so I've added those bigger things like the carnations, the roses in the beginning, and then I come back in with like my nicer, bougier flowers. If I don't love a flower as much, I will kind of more bury it. But I know that not everybody loves like a filler flower in a package, but I think that they are necessary for sure. And I think that I find like if it's all peonies, all ranunculus, then it makes that a little bit maybe less special. So I still love the variety. Okay, so I've got a hole in the middle. So I've kind of worked my way out, coming in. And what do I want to do now? Let's bring in some of these beautiful Lisianthus flowers. Now these are the ones that I like to let kind of dance because they have such great movement. They're a beautiful flower. I often like to cut them apart and have the open and closed buds. So we're just going for like a soft organic, nothing, crazy asymmetrical, because that look is not for everybody. I love it. I'm coming in with some scabiosa, and this, you probably can't see it, but it has a straw on it. There's a reason, because without the straw, it will droop. So the straw is clear. Occasionally I take them off, but even when designing, I really like to leave on those straws just because I don't want to surprise the next day when I come into the studio and they're all like drooped over, because they just have really, really thin stems. So I'm going to address this hole in the middle, and I feel, let's go ahead and I want to sink an Eskimo rose pretty low. See how I did that? If I made it high, it would just kind of all be rounded, and I want that soft organic shape. So I usually like to nestle things in the middle. And we're trying to balance it out a little bit. This gorgeous Lisianthus. And at this point, I want to address kind of the holes and look for the opportunities that I can take my fancier flowers and showcase them. And so see how there's air in this? It's not so compact. And that's because I did really light greenery. when you're moving things and you place, maybe you start with the greenery and you have some good placement, that means that you don't have to just pack it full, and that means that it takes less product to build that arrangement. And I feel like you can observe the flowers individually a little bit. I feel like it's easier on the eye. As a new florist, I would just pack it out because I didn't know better. So if you're DIYing, that's where practice is so helpful, is that if you can do a few practice rounds with some cheap grocery store flowers, you can kind of get a feel for it, and you're like, oh, that's not so hard. Let's cut this a little bit shorter. Spray roses are fantastic because you can break them apart. And like I was saying before, I like the chicken wire a lot better. It's not only eco-friendly, but I feel like I just like the ability to adjust things. There is a little bit of a learning curve when you're getting started, and that's what makes it a little bit tricky and a smidge harder when training a new designer. They can kind of get frustrated with it. So I think I'm pretty much there. Maybe just adding in a few more, making sure that I don't have any weird holes. Kind of feel like I have a hole over here and I have an extra rose, so I'm gonna find a place for it. We're just gonna stick this guy in here. And I always like to get down and look at it from the level that somebody at the table. So I have a hole right here, have one right here. That's easy to fix with greenery and some spray roses. Like a little place for everybody. All right, so that took me about, maybe 10 minutes? And of course I was going at a quick speed because I feel like it can be intimidating, and I don't think that it needs to be. So you can just move quickly, just kind of keep the same rules as far as do clusters, different angles, green out first to set your margins and what your boundaries. Don't just plop your favorite flower in the middle like I did. And just keep turning and working your centerpiece. Don't overthink it. A lot of times it's not that the whole thing needs to be redone. It's not like you need to take it apart if you get frustrated. A lot of times it's just little tweaks. So when I work with new designers, they'll say, look at it, I'm stuck, help. And I'll walk over and I'm like, this is great. Just move this up, this down, adjust this slightly, and you're there. So just trying to take the complication out of it. If you have any questions, then reach out to us. Hit like or subscribe below. And if you have any requests, be sure to let us know because I love requests and I love challenges. All right, thank you so much.